Hey everybody, welcome back to the Deep Dive. I'm your host, and I'm here with our expert.
As always,
to dive into something that's been really blowing up our feeds over here at the KATM YouTube channel.
Yeah, and it's a tough one this time. We're talking about Steve Smith Sr., former NFL star, now analyst, and facing some pretty serious allegations.
Yeah, this one is, I don't know, it hit kind of hard, because Smith, he built his whole image on being like straight up, right?
Right.
Fiery even, but like honest.
Yeah, totally.
So to have these accusations of infidelity, it's got people shook.
It's interesting though, right? How this really exposes that whole fragility of public image, right?
Yeah.
You spend years, building this persona, and then one incident can completely shift how people see you. And this is especially true, I think, for athletes, where their character is almost as important as their stats. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure. So let's go back to the beginning of this whole thing. February 22nd, Tony Martinez goes on.
What is it called now?
It's X, right?
X, yeah.
The old Twitter head.
Yeah.
And just unloads accusing Smith of having an affair with his wife.
Yeah, and he doesn't just make the claim, right? He provides what he says as evidence, so screenshots of alleged text messages, even a video of a confrontation he had with Smith on the phone.
Okay, so I saw that video, and Martinez is like clearly angry, right, shouting accusations, and Smith's response is basically just, "I'm sorry."
Right.
Doesn't deny anything, but he doesn't really admit guilt either.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point too, right? It's like almost the psychology of apologies, right? That "I'm sorry" could be strategic. It diffuses the situation in the moment without actually confirming anything.
Right.
It leaves it open to interpretation.
Yep.
Which, in a crisis like this might be exactly what you want.
So playing it cool under fire, but then Martinez posts this inappropriate selfie of Smith.
Oh.
Which, doesn't prove the affair, but it doesn't exactly scream innocent either.
Right, it feeds into a narrative whether it was intentional or not. And, since then, public reaction has been all over the map, right?
Yeah.
You've got people in complete disbelief, other people ready to cancel Smith, and then a big chunk saying, hold on, we need to hear his side of the story.
Yeah, which is fair.
Which is totally fair. We're getting one side of what is a very messy story.
Yeah.
But this brings us to how deeply this could hurt Smith's reputation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy has always promoted this image of a family man.
Right. Married to Angie Smith since 2004 kids. Always talks about his wife, his value.
Exactly. And that's where the potential damage is huge, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about, being an athlete. It's about contradicting this carefully crafted persona, this moral persona, which you could argue is always a risky move for someone as outspoken as Smith,
Right.
Like, honesty's great,
Yeah.
but it can backfire.
Oh, that's a good point. It's almost like he was setting himself up for harsher judgment if something like this ever came out.
Yeah.
We can't forget about Angie Smith and all this.
Of course not.
She's kept a pretty low profile, known for her charity work, not really part of the whole, football wife scene.
Right. This throws her into a spotlight that she never asked for.
Yeah.
Which has got to be tough.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the hidden costs of fame, right?
Yeah.
Even spouses that stay out of the limelight can get dragged into these messes.
Totally. And of course, the million-dollar question, what happens now?
Right.
Does Smith address this? How does this impact his marriage, his family?
Yeah.
What about NFL Network? Do they keep him on?
It's a PR nightmare, frankly.
Sure.
Stay silent, you look guilty, speak out, you risk saying the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It'll be really interesting to see how they handle this because there's no winning move here, only damage control.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's
take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll unpack this a little bit more.
Sounds good.
It's a tough spot for NFL Network, too.
Oh, yeah.
They've built their brand on, credibility, providing that expert analysis.
Right.
This puts them in a really, really tough position.
Totally. It's like, do they risk alienating viewers by keeping him on, or do they risk this whole other PR disaster by dropping him too quickly?
Exactly. It's a lose-lose.
Yeah.
And this whole thing really just underscores the power and peril of social media, right?
Oh, yeah.
One minute you're this respected figure, the next you're trending for all the wrong reasons. And it happens so fast too, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like that court of public opinion moves at lightning speed.
It's crazy how one tweet can set off this whole chain reaction. And we see this all the time now, right?
All the time.
People jump to conclusions based on these snippets of information.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's the judge, jury, and executioner all rolled into one.
And that's the danger, right? We're so quick to condemn or absolve based on these incomplete narrative.
Yeah.
And this situation with Smith is a prime example.
Yeah.
We have accusations, we have alleged evidence, but we don't have the full story.
Which makes me think about something you said earlier about holding public figures to a higher standard.
Right.
It's tricky, right? Because They're human, they make mistakes, but they're also role models, especially for younger fans.
It's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
We put them on this pedestal and then we tear them down when they don't live up to our often unrealistic expectations.
Right.
But this case does raise some valid questions.
Yeah.
How much should personal life impact someone's professional standing?
Right.
Where do you draw that line?
Yeah, and it's not like he was accused of, on-the-field misconduct or something.
This is messy personal.
Things is messy personal stuff, but does it affect his ability to, analyze football?
Right.
It's got people debating.
And that debate, I think, is important. It forces us to kind of confront our own biases, our own values, right?
For sure.
Do we prioritize talent over character, forgiveness over consequences?
Yeah.
These aren't easy questions, but they're worth asking.
Absolutely. And this situation with Smith, as uncomfortable as it is, it has sparked those conversations.
It has.
It's a reminder that we need to be more discerning about the information we consume and more thoughtful about our judgments.
100%. And, we can't lose sight of the fact that there are real people at the center of this.
Yeah.
Smith, his wife, their children, they're all going through something incredibly difficult, regardless of what the outcome is.
It's easy to forget that when you get caught up in the drama and the headlines.
Oh, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, this is about families, relationships, and the potential for real hurt and lasting consequences.
And that brings us back to Smith's career.
Okay.
The guy's been killing it on NFL Network. His commentary's sharp. He doesn't hold back.
He's been bringing that same straight shooter energy that he had on the field to the broadcast booth.
Right.
And fans love it. It's authentic. It's engaging. It's part of what makes him so popular.
But now the question is, will this tarnish that?
Yeah.
Will viewers still see him the same way?
Right. Will NFL Network feel the pressure to take action?
I mean, imagine you're the head of that network.
Yeah.
It's a PR nightmare. Every decision has potential backlash.
Right.
They're walking a tightrope.
Totally.
It's a high-stakes situation for everybody involved,
Yeah. Do they conduct their own investigation? Do they wait for more information to come out?
Right. Do they address it head-on, or do they just hope it blows over?
And that brings up a really interesting point about accountability in media.
Oh, for sure.
You've seen a lot of cases recently where public figures have been held responsible for their actions, even off camera.
It's part of a larger cultural shift, I think,
Yeah.
and it's definitely spilling over into the sports world. We're demanding more transparency, more ethical behavior from those in positions of power and influence.
Which is a good thing, right?
I think so.
But it also raises some tricky questions, how do we balance someone's right to due process with the need to hold them accountable for their actions?
Right.
And what are the appropriate consequences in a situation like this?
Yeah, it's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Yeah.
It's a conversation we need to be having. In this case with Smith, it's pushing us to have that conversation. It's forcing us to examine our own values and expectations and to grapple with those gray areas of morality and public perception.
And it's reminding us that actions have consequences. Whether those consequences are fair or justified is a debate for another time. But the reality is, in today's world, one misstep can have this ripple effect that impacts your entire life.
And that's the thing. This isn't just a sports story. It's a human story.
Yeah.
It's about the complexities of relationships, the fragility of reputation, and the lasting impact of choices that are made in the heat of the moment.
And the power of perception, whether these allegations are true or not, the damage is done. Smith's image is tarnished, and it's going to take a lot to rebuild that trust with fans.
And with his family, we often forget about the collateral damage in these situations.
Yeah.
The wives, the children, the loved ones who are thrust into the spotlight through no fault of their own.
It's a stark reminder that these aren't just headlines. They're real lives being impacted.
Yeah.
And that's something we should all be more mindful of.
Absolutely. So as we dive deeper into this story, it's important to keep those things in mind, the human element, the complexities of public image, and the power of social media to both build up and tear down.
It's a lot to unpack, but that's why we're here.
That's why we do what we do.
To delve into the nuances, to explore these different perspectives, and to help you, our listeners, make sense of this complex and evolving situation.
And to maybe learn a little bit about ourselves along the way, how we judge, how we forgive, and how we navigate this world where the line between public and private is increasingly blurred.
It's interesting, right? Because this whole thing has sparked this huge debate online.
Oh, yeah.
Even over here at the Kadam YouTube channel. People are grappling with these really tough questions about how we separate the person from their public persona.
It's can we still appreciate Smith's talent and his contributions to the game while acknowledging that he might be, flawed in his personal life?
Yeah.
It's a question we've wrestled with throughout history, right? From artists to politicians to I mean, you name it.
It's that age-old dilemma, right? Can you separate the art from the artist?
Exactly.
And in this case, the art is like his football legacy and his work as an analyst, which is even trickier because his whole brand was built on like honesty and authenticity.
Exactly. It's not like he was this quiet, reserved player that kept his private life under wraps.
Right.
He put it all out there, so when something like this comes up, it feels like such a direct contradiction to everything we thought we knew about him.
It makes the potential fallout even more complex because if these allegations are true, it undermines not just his personal integrity, but also his professional credibility.
100%.
Like, how can you trust his take on the game if you question his character off the field?
Right, and that's the real crux of the issue for NFL Network.
Yeah.
They're not just dealing with a potential PR crisis, but a potential content crisis too.
Yeah, do they try to compartmentalize, separate his analysis from his personal life, or do they acknowledge that the two are now, like, inextricably linked?
It's a tough call, and frankly, there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
It all comes down to their assessment of the situation, the potential damage to their brand, and ultimately their own values as an organization.
And we can't forget about the impact on his family.
Of course not.
Regardless of the outcome, they're the ones that are going to bear the brunt of the public scrutiny and the emotional fallout.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that these situations aren't just about the individual in the spotlight,
Right.
but about the ripple effect on those around them.
100%.
It's easy to get caught up in the drama, the speculation, the hot takes, but at the end of the day, this is about real people and their lives.
Real people, real lives.
And that's something we should all keep in mind as this story unfolds.
It's a story that's bigger than just one athlete, one alleged affair.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of us, society, our obsession with celebrity, our struggle with accountability, and, our constant grappling with this question of how much are we willing to forgive.
And that's what makes it so fascinating to dive into, right? Even if it is uncomfortable at times.
Right.
It forces us to confront our own biases, our own values, and our own understanding of right and wrong.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think we're left with more questions than answers.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe that's the point, Maybe it's not about finding some definitive conclusion, but about sparking these important conversations, encouraging critical thinking, and recognizing just how complex the world we live in really is.
Couldn't have said it better myself. We appreciate you joining us on this deep dive into the Steve Smith Sr. controversy. It's a story that's still developing, and we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on it.
We will.
In the meantime, keep those conversations going, keep challenging your own assumptions, and remember, there's always more of the story than meets the eye.
Until next time, keep diving deep.